I mentioned earlier, many evolutionists are naturalists. They believe that nature is all that there is. The naturalist attempts to use logic and reason to support his position, but there's a problem. Logic is not part of nature, right? You can't point your telescope somewhere and see a law of logic. They're not natural, and they're immaterial. So if everything that exists is part of nature, is material, then you can't have laws of logic. And so the naturalist is trying to use something that cannot exist within his own position to support his own position and to argue against Christianity. The fact that he's able to make an argument at all proves that he's wrong. Now, if he says, well, wait a minute, Dr. Lyle, that can't be because, you don't need to be a Christian to use laws of logic. After all, I use laws of logic, and I don't even believe the Bible, so they can't be dependent upon a biblical God. But that would be no different than the critic of air saying, wait a minute, you don't need air to breathe. I don't even believe in air, and I can breathe just fine, right? That's not a rational argument, is it? I'm not saying you have to profess a belief in air to breathe, but you do need air to breathe. I'm not saying you have to profess a belief in God to use laws of logic, but you do need the biblical God to have laws of logic. No other worldview can account for that. What are some possible responses to this then? Well, some people might say laws of logic are material. They're chemical reactions in the brain. Well, if they're material, they're not laws. And they wouldn't be universal because they wouldn't extend beyond your skull if they're just in your brain. And we wouldn't have the same laws of logic between any two people because we all have different chemical reactions in our brain. So that one doesn't make sense. And some people might say, okay, well, they're not material, but they're descriptions of material things. They're descriptions of how the brain thinks. But if laws of logic were simply descriptions of how the brain thinks, why would we need laws of logic to correct the way the brain thinks, right? I mean, you don't always think logically, but if laws of logic were just a description of how you think, you could never violate one because you always think the way that you think. Yes? Now, we don't always think as God thinks, and that's our problem. That's why we're being irrational. Laws of logic are conventions that we all agree to them and so they work, like driving on the right side of the road. Oh, but some cultures you drive on the left side of the road. So if laws of logic were conventional, different cultures could adopt different laws of logic. Welcome to Australia. Here, contradictions are true. Right? That's not going to work, is it? Laws of logic are universal, and therefore they can't be conventions. They're a property of the universe, Dr. Lyle. They're just a property of the universe. That's the way the universe is. And it's not much of an answer, really. But if they were a property of the universe, well, the universe changes with time. And so we'd expect laws of logic would change. They wouldn't be invariant. And the universe is different in different places. We'd expect different parts of the universe would have different laws of logic. Laws of logic aren't even describing the universe anyway. They're describing concepts, abstract concepts. And so it doesn't make sense for them to be a property of the universe. One person told me this. He says, well, we use them because they work. And I said, I know, but that's not my question. My question is, how can you account for them in an evolutionary worldview? I know they work. They work because they're true, but why are they true? Why are there these universal, invariant, abstract entities that we call laws of logic? I can account for that as a Christian, but my secular colleagues cannot. They're having to use something that does not make sense in their own position to support their own position.